Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. It's Tuesday. It's the 18th of March 2025. This is program number 1340 of the Lunchroom, and I'm your host, Calix George Jr. Now, in addition to radio, of course, 101.1 FM, you can also get us at our website. It's rcistlucia.com, and we are also streaming live on Facebook. You just have to search for the official page of Radio Caribbean International. If you want to call in, that's what's on your plate today. The number to do so is 452 3046. Again, 452 3046. And you can also reach us at our WhatsApp number. That is 724 0008. Again, 724 0008. Now, we want to send out some birthday greetings today to some good people out there. And first, we want to send birthday greetings to Mr. Cyril Saltibus. Happy birthday to you, Cyril. Hope you're having a fantastic birthday celebration. Also want to send out birthday greetings to Miss Charmaine Joseph. Happy birthday to you, Charmaine. And hope you're having a wonderful day. Hope you enjoy it to the fullest. Also to Miss Shadia Mathre. You're on island now, so maybe you might be listening to this. And we're glad to have you back, and we want to wish you happy birthday and all the best for your very special day. Also to my cousin Joy Grant, happy birthday, Joy, and we do hope that you are enjoying your very wonderful birthday. Hope it's a great one for you. And we also want to send out birthday greetings to Mr. Ian Dubule. Happy birthday to you, sir, and we do hope it's a fantastic birthday celebration. And also to a relative of mine over in New York who's celebrating her birthday today. And that is Auntie Patsy, Patricia Sylvester. And I think she's nearing that point where she's gonna be 100 not out. She's not quite there yet, when we're rooting for her to ensure that she gets up there. And we do hope that she's having a wonderful birthday today. So happy birthday, Auntie Patsy. Now, a bit of history for today. Well, we look back to the year 1123. The first Council of the Lateran opened in Rome, and that was the ninth ecumenical council of the church, the Catholic Church. And so agreements of the Concordat of Worms being ratified at that council. 1314, Jacques de Molay, the 23rd and last Grand Master of the Knights Templar, was burnt at the stake by King Philip IV of France. In 1325, according to legend, Tenochtitlan was founded on this day on an island in what was then Lake Texcoco in the Valley of Mexico. And of course, it is present-day Mexico City, the capital of Mexico. 1890, on this day, German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck resigned after 19 years. And that was after a disagreement with the German emperor of the time, Kaiser Wilhelm II. 1922, on this day, British magistrates in India sentenced Mahatma Gandhi to 6 years imprisonment for disobedience. And on March the 18th, 1940, Benito Mussolini and Adolf Hitler met at the Brenner Pass, where the Italian dictator agreed to join Germany's impending war effort in the west of Europe. We now move on to our dish of the day. The daily dish is brought you the kind compliments of our good friends at Tiles Plus. And welcome back to the lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. Now, of course, Yesterday, we spoke quite a bit on the matter of a draft, a news article from the New York Times speaking to what was purported to be a draft document out of the State Department, which had been already a couple of weeks old, according to what it said, and purporting that there were plans or impending plans by the Trump administration to, in fact, place countries under travel bans of one form or another. And of course, this has been political fodder for Trump, and of course, feeding his support base that has been very much keen on trying to make America great again, I guess you could say. And one of the ways that they have deemed that that can happen is by implementing the restrictions on travel from countries that are deemed to be security threats. And of course, we saw a list of, three lists really in circulation, a red list, an orange list, and a yellow list. Different degrees, I suppose, of danger as considered by the officials who were producing that list. Well, nothing official yet, as far as we can tell, by way of any major announcement. But we did get one statement coming out of a press conference, a press briefing held by the State Department yesterday, in which that question regarding the status of Afghanistan being on that list came up, and it was, in fact, refuted by the spokesperson for the State Department after she had, in fact, given her statement. Now, we do have that clip. I think it's available. So we're going to try to get that for you. Yeah, that is it right there, and to be able to at least get it to be played, so you could hear pretty much what she says about this whole idea of a list.
First of all, there is no list. What people are looking at over these last several days is not a list that exists here that is being acted on. There is a review, as we know through the president's executive order, for us to look at the nature of what's going to help keep America safer in dealing with the issue of visas and who's allowed into the country. But what has been touted as something that is an item through the State Department, it just simply isn't the case. So the premise, I have to say, I certainly can't speak to, because it's not accurate.
Right, and that statement, as I said, being issued yesterday as part of a press conference of about 40 minutes, which of course is a norm for the State Department on a daily basis. They would come out and provide updates on a wide range of issues in terms of U.S. foreign policy. And so, as of now, there is still, of course, no definitive further development regarding this matter. But of course, it is one that we will no doubt be monitoring, excuse me, as things move forward. Now, no doubt, it will probably be something that may come up in conversation in the days ahead. And that is because the plan is, in fact, for Mr. Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, to, in fact, meet leaders of CARICOM. And there's a story coming out of the Jamaica Observer early on from the 12th of March, actually, which spoke to CARICOM foreign ministers meeting with the U.S. Special Envoy for Latin America and the Caribbean. And I'm just going to share that story at this time, coming from CMC. It reads as follows. Caribbean Community, CARICOM, foreign ministers have been told that the United States U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, is expected to travel to the Caribbean region before the end of March for discussions on several issues affecting CARICOM relations with the U.S. Last Sunday, U.S. Special Envoy for Latin America and the Caribbean, Mauricio Claver Carone, met in Washington with representatives from Barbados, the Bahamas, Belize, Dominica, Guyana, Haiti, Jamaica, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Suriname, and Trinidad and Tobago. Informed sources told the Caribbean Media Corporation that while the regional representatives who were informed of the pending visit of Rubio, no specific date or countries to be visited have been disclosed. According to the sources, the meeting discussed a wide range of issues from Washington's recent announcement regarding the Cuban Health Brigade system to energy and economic development, as well as Haiti's security and stability. CARICOM countries have defended the Cuban health program, which they say have benefited the region significantly, even as Rubio announced recently that Washington would be expanding an existing Cuba-related visa restriction policy that targets forced labor linked to the Cuban labor export program. Quote, this expanded policy applies to current or former Cuban government officials and other individuals, including foreign government officials who are believed to be responsible for or involved in the Cuban labor export program, particularly Cuba's overseas medical missions, Rubio said then. The Antigua and Barbuda, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Trinidad and Tobago prime ministers have publicly expressed their support for the Cuban program, while Grenada's foreign affairs minister, that should be, Joseph Andel, said St. George's was not only has a legal and moral and ethical obligation to stand by the people of Cuba, but that it should avoid being opportunistic or transactional as it pertains to the relations between the two countries, end quote. Quote, Cuba continues to be a trustworthy friend and partner, not only of Grenada, not only of the Caribbean, but of people the world over. When the COVID-19 pandemic broke out, Cuban doctors went as far as Italy to provide services. I did not hear anybody talk about human trafficking and things like that, Andel told the parliament on Tuesday during the country's national budget debate. According to the sources, during the meeting on Sunday, Claver Carone explained that Washington was interested in promoting an opportunity for Cuban medical personnel to independently earn and sell their services and to enjoy the rights enjoyed by other CARICOM workers under International Labor Organization conventions and other international best practices. The sources said that the envoy explained that the U.S. action was not only targeting the CARICOM member states, but was a global approach, pointing out that the U.S. response was also targeting Italy and Qatar. The discussion focused on ensuring that Cuban doctors have the same rights as citizens, despite restrictions from their governments, the sources said, even as CARICOM criticized U.S. policies towards Cuba, advocating for labor rights and international norms. The discussion highlighted the need for fair negotiations and financial transaction models, the sources said, adding that the meeting also discussed the ongoing Cuba and economic situation, quote, touching on the struggles faced by the Cuban people and the need for a transition towards normalcy. The discussions on Haiti, where criminal gangs have been seeking to overthrow the government since the assassination of President Jovenel Moïse in July 2021, centered on the security challenges in the French-speaking CARICOM country. The sources said the discussions emphasize the need for international support to equip the Haitian National Police and address gang-related issues. Claver Carone is reported to have said that the Donald Trump administration would continue the Biden administration policy on Haiti, even as he noted that in the complex situation, CARICOM had credibility in its engagement with Haiti, and that the United States would not be supportive of any policy that would see Haiti sink further into becoming a failed state run by gangs. The sources said that the special envoy also committed to transmitting Haiti's request for support to the transition of an elected authority and the need for adaptive equipment to match the strength of the equipment in the hands of the gangs. With regards to Venezuela and regional stability, the sources told CMC that the meeting decided that the focus should be on proactive policies, particularly in economic and energy sectors. The sources said that the meeting ended with the need for a solid and open line of communication between CARICOM and the US to ensure progress and address issues effectively. And as I said, that story coming out of the Jamaica Observer about 6 days ago, sometime last week. So certainly this meeting, which should be called before the end of March, no doubt will be a rather interesting engagement with the new administration in Washington. And there would be so very many matters to be discussed. And we have certainly heard some of the pronouncements by various leaders of the Caribbean, particularly with respect to the what seems to be a very hardened approach by the United States towards dealing with Cuba and its medical missions. Now, Cuba has been a country that has been very generous over the years to the Caribbean, the broader Caribbean. Of course, Cuba is a significant, it's the largest island, it's the largest country in the Caribbean Sea, and very developed in its own right, and has, through the period of revolution, placed a great emphasis and premium on social services, and particularly the development of the human being. And so you saw quite a lot of investment in Cuba during the Fidel Castro period, a regime, into provisions such as housing as well as health and education. And so many St. Lucians have actually been able to gain scholarships and to pursue higher education in Cuba. And we certainly owe them a debt of gratitude in this regard for being able to produce and train and upskill so many St. Lucians who have actually come back here. And some of them have actually even migrated out of St. Lucia, perhaps even to the United States of America, and are making contributions in various fields. But certainly in the area of healthcare, they have been pioneers, you could say, and have certainly, despite the limitations of an embargo that has been ongoing for more than 6 decades now, they have been able to sustain a healthy population, excuse me, and they've been able to do so with the means of investment in healthcare, and in particular, training doctors and nurses and other medical practitioners, biotechnicians, to be able to support their healthcare system. They've also invested quite a lot in biomedical sciences and in research and in the development of their own drugs and pharmaceuticals. So even during that entire period of COVID-19, Cuba stood out as having up to 3 or 4 different vaccines being developed by their scientists. So certainly they punch far above the weight of a country of its size. A country of just 11 million people is certainly was able to achieve and is being able to achieve a tremendous amount of influence in the area of health. And that is what has afforded them the opportunity to be able to assist countries around the world in this regard. And we've seen this. I mean, many countries provide assistance in terms of medical missions. Even the United States of America has provided through their military assistance over the years in that regard. We get quite a lot of assistance from France, for example, through Martinique, in terms of medical assistance. And so, undoubtedly, the support from Cuba is rather invaluable in this regard. And many Caribbean leaders have pretty much said, thanks, but no thanks. You can keep your passport, you can keep your visa, but we are not going to break relations with Cuba. Let's take a listen to the statement coming from Honorable Mia Motley, and she was speaking quite recently at the Barbados's budget address, which was happening in the Parliament of Barbados in Bridgetown.
This matter with the Cubans and the nurses should tell us everything that we need to know. Barbados does not currently have Cuban medical staff or Cuban nurses, but I will be the first to go to the line and to tell you that we could not get through the pandemic without the Cuban nurses and the Cuban doctors. I will also be the first to tell you that we paid them the same thing that we paid Bajans, and that the notion, as was peddled not just by this government in the US, but the previous government, that we were involved in human trafficking by engaging with the Cuban nurses, was fully repudiated and rejected by us. Now, I don't believe that we have to shout across the seas, but I am prepared, like others in this region, that if we cannot reach a sensible agreement on this matter, then if the cost of it is the loss of my visa to the US, then so be it. But what matters to us is principles. And I have said over and over that principles only mean something when it is inconvenient to stand by it. Now, we don't have to shout, but we can be resolute. And I therefore look forward to standing with my CARICOM brothers. I wish I could say brothers and sisters, but brothers, to be able to ensure that we explain that what the Cubans have been able to do for us, far from approximating itself to human trafficking, has been to save lives and limbs and sight for many a Caribbean person.
Saving of lives and limbs and sight, and certainly Cuban medical services have done that over the years, and of course, just quite recently, the reopening of the Cuban Miracle Eye program we witnessed up at the Betty Wells Polyclinic. Now, the matter of limbs, and even, of course, when we speak to the amount of research that they were doing, I remember at one point they were also developing a drug, I think, called Hebeprot, which was aimed at reducing the need for amputations when you're dealing with diabetic foot ulcer. And so you could see that there were a lot of actions being taken by Cuban researchers to deal with issues that are very, very important right here in the Caribbean, and to deal with the challenges that we have in our medical system. And so definitely the contributions of Cuba towards keeping our populations alive in the Caribbean is certainly a very, very real one. We have another clip from Honorable Dr. Ralph Gonzalez speaking at a meeting, I think a campaign meeting over in St. Vincent. Rather similar sentiments shared by him.
If it is determined that you have to take away my visa and Eloise's visa, I want to say this publicly. It could be reported. I'm not looking for fight with anybody, but we have to be honest and open. The hemodialysis which we do in St. Vincent at the Modern Medical and Diagnostic Center with these 60 persons, without the Cubans there, I will not be able to offer that service. So, does anybody expect that to go because I want to keep a visa, that I would let 60 persons from the poor and working people to die? It will never happen.
And that was Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Ralph Gonsalves. And I mean, Barbados, as you heard, and Mia Motley was making the point that at the moment they don't have any Cuban nurses and doctors through any kind of medical mission at the moment in Barbados. But she made the point, of course, that they were at a point where they needed it during the pandemic. Barbados is in perhaps a better position than many other islands in the Caribbean in terms of the human the workforce, if you want to call it that, the people, the human resources in the medical sector. They have a relatively high proportion of doctors per capita. It works out to be, in the case of Barbados, nearly 30 physicians for every 10,000 people in the population. In the case of St. Vincent, it's 9. And in the case of St. Lucia, it's even lower. It's 6.5 physicians for every 10,000 people. So you can see why there is, in fact, a need, excuse me, a need to bring in to many of our islands additional human resources and support, because we simply do not have sufficient doctors to be able to support our population. In the case of the United States, for example, they have a ratio of 36 for every 10,000 people. So much higher, of course. But in our case, we need to bring them in. Now, of course, on the matter of visas, we're seeing that Caribbean leaders are openly saying that, hey, you can take our visas. That's not a problem. Well, that's exactly what has kind of happened already in the case of Trinidad and Tobago and the United Kingdom. And they've been slapped with a visa requirement immediately. And, well, let's listen to we can now say former Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Keith Rowley, on the matter.
You heard last week that the British government get a VAPS and decide to put all of us on visas.
This means that all Trinidad and Tobago nationals must obtain a visa before travelling to the UK for all visits.
Britain is our friendly Commonwealth nation. They have in this country a high commission with staff. What Britain has done there is not only to damage us and our feelings, but to damage our economy as well, because London is a gateway to Europe. And worse, the visa is very expensive. But what really rots my gut is that I have to also swallow that the highest court of this land is in London, at the Privy Council. Do you really feel independent? Well, if you all didn't know that we should get out of the Privy Council and get to the Caribbean Court of Justice, this treatment by the British government should let all of you know how they view us. Many of them still believe that we are substandard, we are inferior, and they should treat us as they want to treat us. It is unjust. It is disgraceful that they will put a fee on us and tell us, while you have to come to us to have our law lords tell you what is right and wrong, you have to pay for a visa to come and do that. Trinidad and Tobago must complete its independence and get to hell out of the Privy Council.
Well, in one regard, I think we're a little better off than in the case of Trinidad and Tobago. We now have the the Caribbean Court of Justice as our final appellate court. And of course, that was a decision taken not too long ago. The irony is that Trinidad and Tobago is in fact the headquarters of the Caribbean Court of Justice. So it's right there. I think is it on Frederick Street, downtown Port of Spain. So somebody having to go to the Caribbean Court of Justice, Trinidadian, they don't even have to leave the country. They have it right there, but they cannot access it as their final appellate court. So we'll have to see. You'll have to wait and see what happens in that regard because, hey, look at it. Trinidad became a republic back, I think, was it in 1976. And so it's been a number of years now that they've, in fact, been a republic. And of course, they've been independent for even longer than that. And they don't have the CCJ as their final court of decision making as yet. So that may come. In fact, they have a new prime minister, and he is Mr. Stuart Young. He is, in fact, of Chinese, Indo-Chinese Trinidadian. And so I think it's the first time maybe Trinidad would have somebody of Chinese descent being the leader, head of government of that country. So congratulations to him, no doubt, on this achievement. Of course, he's been part of the former Rowley ministry. And so lots of changes there as well in terms of the politics of Trinidad. And so who knows, maybe he might be the prime minister to bring Trinidad to the CCJ. That's our dish of the day. And when we come back, we're taking our weather report. Okay.
And that's all, of course, on the 1.1. It's now time for your weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Talent Bath. The forecast for St. Lucia Valley for the next 24 hours, winds will be blowing from the southeast near 8 miles per hour or 13 kilometers per hour, becoming lighter and variable or calm at times. The weather for skies becoming cloudy at times with a few brief showers. And the forecast for the Los Angeles, fair to partly cloudy skies with widely scattered showers. And the weather summary, light easterly winds will persist over the eastern Caribbean region during the next couple of days. Patches of low-level clouds drifting along the wind flow will cause some brief showers over the region during the forecast period. And this was your weather forecast as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Talent Bath.
And welcome back to the lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. Now, of course, if you want to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, please do so. You can call into 452-3046. Excuse me. Again, 452-3046. That is the number to call into. Now, sometime last week, actually, there was a release that we wanted to make note of, and that was the matter of a review of the tariffs for the water and sewage company, and that was being announced. Just to get the story, and it reads as follows, and that's coming from excuse the St. Lucia Times. Regulator examines Wasco's bid for rate review. The water and sewage company Wasco is requesting a review of proposed rates for the 2024-2027 period, marking the first price review in 12 years. In a press release on Thursday, the National Utilities Regulatory Commission, the NERC, which regulates the water, wastewater, and electricity sectors in St. Lucia, announced that it has begun reviewing Wasco's tariff application for the upcoming triennium. It assured that consumer interests will be considered in determining whether to approve the proposed rate adjustments. Excuse me. However, the specific rate proposals have not been disclosed. The review process will unfold in 3 phases. The first phase involves a detailed assessment of Wasco's tariff application. Quote, an important aspect of this review will be to establish a firm foundation for economic regulation in the future. The prices for water and wastewater and sewage services were last reviewed in 2013. Accordingly, for this rate review, the NERC is required to assess Wasco's submission, that is, its business plan, investment plan, accounting information, and other supporting information, the NERC statement said. The NERC must also be satisfied that the interests of customers are considered, excuse me, and that prices provide appropriate indicators in relation to the cost of providing service. The second phase will focus on stakeholder consultations. WASCO, with NERC, that's the National Utilities Regulatory Commission, acting as an intermediary, will present its case to key stakeholders and interest groups in St. Lucia. During this phase, WASCO will justify its proposed rate adjustments, outlining the challenges it faces and the strategies it plans to implement to improve service quality. The presentation will also cover the expected revenue from the rate adjustments and propose strategies to address customer concerns. After reviewing WASCO's documents and feedback from stakeholders, the National Utilities Regulatory Commission will issue a draft determination report of rates and miscellaneous charges. This document will detail the findings and propose adjustments to rates and charges. In this final stage, stakeholders will be invited to provide feedback and engage in face-to-face public consultations with the NERC. The NERC will conclude the process by publishing and circulating a final determination report for the water and sewage sector, following review of all comments and concerns raised concerning the draft document. NERC assured that as an independent regulatory body, it remains committed to protecting consumer interests while ensuring that WASCO has the necessary resources to provide high-quality services at efficient costs. The Commission also stressed its responsibility to ensure that vulnerable groups, excuse me, including low-income households, can access essential services at affordable rates. And that piece coming through the St. Lucia Times, dealing with the matter of WASCO's impending rate review. And now, of course, the whole idea of having a commission, a national regulatory commission, is so that the matter is taken out of the realm of politics. Now, you have, of course, in the past, the rate may have been set by the government, by a minister. It would have just been a decision taken by them. The idea is that you separate that task because, of course, if it was left up to politicians, sometimes some politicians may never provide a rate increase to an institution like WASCO, because they may decide that the rate is such a politically charged matter that they may forego doing so. And this is in fact what has happened in the past with respect to institutions like WASCO, and perhaps even in the past with other institutions that provide other utilities. And that has been to the detriment of those companies or those entities, because what it then meant was that these companies were never in a position to be able to deal with the maintenance that they had to do, deal with the operating expenses of keeping the system going, far less having the opportunity to actually invest in expansion and long-term projects. So this is precisely why we are in this situation right now with respect to WASCO. And there are, of course, concerns that people have raised. One of them is the matter of the desilting of the John Compton Dam. Now, there was a dredging fee that had been placed on bills with the specific purpose of ensuring that those funds were going to be going towards the tackling of the issue of the silting, the buildup and accumulation of silt in the John Compton Dam. Now, this is something that happens to all dams anywhere around the world, right? You have a situation where you have a process of erosion. And so once you have placed a blockage in on a river for the purpose of getting water, yes, you're stopping the water, but you're also beginning to stop the silt. Now, that silt would normally have been brought downstream into the low-lying areas. It would have become alluvium. It would have spread out on the floodplain. And that would have been a process that would have continued for a very long time. The problem is that you have a buildup of silt in those dams over time. And what it does is that it makes it much harder now to abstract the water, as well as reducing the overall capacity of the dam, because instead it's getting filled up with other materials that shouldn't, well, theoretically, you would not want there. So the cost of desilting is something that comes up in many instances where you have dams that have been built. Unfortunately, in our instance, the process did not result in a significant reduction in the amount of silt that was there. So quite a lot of money was spent, apparently, over $60 million. And still, however, there is that challenge of the desilting of the John Compton Dam up to today. And if that was not enough, of course, we've also seen that the company has to be now playing catch up in terms of a lot of its infrastructure, which has been aging. The line, that raw water line that takes water from the John Compton Dam to the Fibbles treatment plant before it even gets treated, that is in a dire state of, well, one could say it needs to be, in fact, perhaps decommissioned because it has so many leaks, leak after leak, and it therefore impacts on even getting the water into the treatment plant. And then if that was not enough, of course, we know that on the rest of the system, there are tremendous challenges, so that effectively you have the term non-revenue water, water that leaves the Fibbles treatment plant but never reaches a customer because it simply gets lost in the system. Now, I mean, with all systems, you are going to have losses, right? That is the nature of transmission of something, and in electricity, you have losses as well on the lines, copper losses. In the case of Wasco, you have losses too. You would have losses. You're always going to have some level of leaks. But the question is to what extent? And in the case of Wasco, there are suggestions that it could be upwards of 40, 50%, maybe even more in terms of the losses in that regard. So those changes, those pieces of infrastructure have to be replaced. And so therefore the question is, with a massive amount of capital requirement, how then is that going to be funded? What has effectively happened over the years is that the government has had to step in to seek out grants and seek out other funding to be able to provide that kind of support in this regard. So it will be certainly a very interesting opportunity to hopefully see this in process, see how it works. We have been being told that it has not happened. There hasn't been a rate review since 2013. And the truth is, these things are supposed to happen on a triennial basis, every 3 years. And so we are clearly dealing with a situation which is 4 trienniums, effectively, after the fact. As to how that, of course, that may have to be factored in within the overall request that is being made. If these things were done perhaps in time and regularly, then you might see a more incremental change. But then when you leave them for very, very long times, they begin to accumulate, and then that's when they sometimes you end up with a high step change in what is perhaps going to be requested by way of an increase. So nobody ever wants to hear about increases in prices of things, but I think at the same time, I think we all want to ensure that we can get a reliable system. And once you talk about reliability, you've got to talk about cost of ensuring the resilience and reliability of a system. Let's take in a call at this time before we end the program. Good afternoon. Welcome to the lunchroom. And what is on your plate today?
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi, caller. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. I
Good.
see your foot still troubling you.
Yes, unfortunately.
Okay. What are you talking about? I listened to a news clip with Mr. Trescott Augustine explaining that thing, I think, yesterday morning.
Okay.
On 27-25. And I think if it's for the betterment of the water supply we get, I don't think people should really have a problem paying a little extra, because if they, as they say, the infrastructure and all of these problems they're having, they don't have the money. I don't think they can really give us the supply of water that we need. So if they're asking for a little extra, I don't think this will really be a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we have to see how much is being requested, and then weigh it against what is the requirement. So, of course, as was mentioned in that release from the NERC, Wasco is going to have to would have come forward and said, look, over the next 3 years, we need to invest X million dollars, right? So this is money that we have to raise, and we can raise it, yes, by taking out a loan, but we need to be able to pay back these loans. And so therefore, for us to do that, we need a commensurate increase to be able to capture that. And then they'll also have to come and say that, look, based on our maintenance scheduling and what we need to do, we may need another X million dollars. And so all of that has to be looked at in terms of the company's revenue, its customer base, and to see how then it can actually achieve those increases. I mean, now, of course, it gets a lot more complicated, because they may suggest that they may want to put higher increase on certain types of customers, certain classes of customers. We already, of course, we already have those divisions in terms of types of customers, whether it's hotels, whether it's domestic, whatever the case is. Maybe even something on the basis of geography is something that has been touted, in the past. Should a person in Viewfort, be paying the same rate as a person in Castries, or a person in Soufrière should be paying the same rate as a person in Viewfort? Could there be some possibilities there in terms of creating different bands of payment? Maybe. So I don't know. We'll have to hear what hopefully
Because
very
there are
soon.
There are
What
people that they never have problems in the supply of water. People must remember that there are people that never really have supply problem in the supplies of water.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's some places in St. Lucia that have very, very reliable supplies of water. I can assume maybe people in the city always have a lot of a good water supply. But of course the challenge with our development is that you have lots of people on hillsides. They're building high and higher. They're looking for the view. Right? They might tell you, well, that's where I got the land at an affordable price, and then you go further out, and then that means that everything has to get to you, right?
And they think of the beautiful sight and all of these things from the top of that hill. They're not realizing sometimes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we go out there sometimes, and that's unfortunate. It's a reality of the situation. We go out there, we get land because we said, oh, we got a deal. The land doesn't have proper infrastructure. You get it from somebody, they might just have a little dirt road, and then then you begin to realize, well, is the water going to reach up there?
Most important thing, which is water,
right? Do I have well, usually they get power relatively easy. But am I going to be able to get water? And then of course sometimes they'll then go to the representative and say, you got to fix my road, right? So at the end of it all, somebody's got to pay, right? We've got to figure out how that is working out and how that is balancing out. So yeah, it is certainly a very big challenge.
I was going to ask something. If the spokesperson for Home and Defense is actually clarifying everything and saying that there is no list, it's not accurate on all of those things. So why then all that big fuss that is taken? Because I listened to all how you clarified everything yesterday, but on another station, it's like it was the end of the world. Allowance was even made for Martinez to call in.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Martinez called in.
On what basis? What was he going to talk about? He was working for the State Department now?
Apparently, he had to do this galaxy, and it's like people, it's like the people, like it was the end of the world. How making it look as if people won't be able to go to the United States. You'll be barred. The what's his name? The host set the stage for that whole thing, and then listening to the spokesperson saying something different because it's coming right from the host's mouth. Why do people have to do those things? Put people in so much fear.
Yeah, well, that's unfortunate. I think the creation of fear is something that we have to guard against. In fact, I was just speaking to somebody today, and they were indicating that they had to travel. They were planning on traveling, and they were debating whether they should pass through the United States or not. Because they didn't know, if this thing might actually be impacted. And so so you're getting people to be fearful of a lot of things, even that their travel arrangements might be.
But they're suggesting so many different things. The people that are speaking is people right here in suggesting they have to do with the doctors, the Cuban doctors, this CIP, all kinds of things. I listened to the Prime Minister of Antigua yesterday morning on the sea. And what he said right now, and what he's doing, he's adjusting the salaries of the Cuban nurses and doctors.
Okay.
So that he explained how they are on par with the nurses and the doctors. So they're trying to do things. But nothing like that was said, but people are drawing conclusion.
If we had to go on the basis of what we read in the article, and if that in fact was an accurate representation of what was in the report that they had sight of, then looking at our situation, the main issue that seems to fit, and I'm saying seems to fit, this is just on the basis of what we read yesterday, it would appear that the concern would be how those countries would deal with ensuring that the banned countries would not be able to, persons from those banned countries would not be able to get citizenship and then get passports, which could then, to get themselves into, or maybe they already have citizenship and they would want to ensure that they would not be able to get into the United States of America. So let's say, for example, right now, and just hypothetically, St. Lucia has issued 5 citizenships to persons who were Afghani citizens, right?
Yeah.
And these Afghani citizens now have, and they have St. Lucian citizenship, and those passports, maybe through that they already have their visas. They got US visas on their St. Lucia passports. They if you're putting a travel ban on Afghanistan, right?
Yeah.
They would not want the loophole of those 5 Afghanis perhaps also coming through, right?
On a St. Lucian passport.
On a St. Lucian passport.
So you could just St. Lucia can just revoke it. Then.
So there are probably certain undertakings that they will want to know, perhaps, well, could you maybe give us a list of all those people who you already have issued? Now mind you, I think it's still a little bit I don't think that the argument that there's in terms of the US, if that is in fact the case, is sufficient, because they have their own system of issuing visas, right?
Yes.
And they're supposed to be doing their own, and they do their own background checks and all of that. So really and truly, a St. Lucian passport holder cannot just walk into the United States of America. They have to get a visa. So I mean, they would know because they have their own records as well. So
it's still not making sense.
Yeah. So I mean, so that's why I said, if we take it on face value based on what the article said, that is probably what they may want to, the quote unquote concerns might be. Which in all honesty, it's not a massive thing to deal with, to be honest, right? But it could potentially be a concern. But the other side of it is, I guess, because it seems as though the way the administration has been operating, it seems a lot of issues are getting conflated, right? Even in the way that we see Mr. Trump dealing with his foreign policy. In one moment, he might decide, well, I'm going to take away aid. And in the next moment, I'm going to turn back. And the next moment, right, and I'm going to slap you with a tariff. And then I'm not going to slap you with a tariff. And I'm going to slap you with a tariff. And I know I want to invade you. And I want this territory. So maybe you should, so it's in, although there is the face value proposition, excuse me, there is so much conflating of issues in general that it is kind of hard for other people looking out into this to say, well, maybe who knows what it could be. It could be the reason that may be given may not really be the true reason. I mean, look at we're seeing we're being told that we have issues with the Cuban medical program. The Cuban medical program is doing far more good than any bad in the world globally. We know this. The Americans know this. So why target it? Except to say that maybe if they can, get the program out of the way, then could that be a potential loss of influence for Cuba? Would Cuba have less support? So
don't they themselves send the doctors and nurses to other places, especially some of them look like, right, I think in June, some 100 American doctors and nurses will be coming, I think in collaboration with the Adventist Church and the Ministry of Health. So
that's great. That's absolutely great.
Then you have the ship that come in all of this different, just
the comfort,
the program that ended, so why you want, come on.
Yeah. So I mean, there are a lot of issues that have been created as to what's real and what's not in terms of what the true agenda is. We'd have to wait and see how a lot of that pans out. And as I mentioned, there's supposed to be an upcoming meeting of the U.S. and the U.S. Secretary of State and
foreign
Caribbean leaders.
Yeah.
It'll be a very, very interesting meeting. I'd love to be a fly on the wall on that one. So,
Yeah.
but
There
yeah,
are some very
definitely.
strong-minded people like Gonzag and wasn't it me and all those people sitting in the room with that gentleman.
Yeah, so it'll be very interesting indeed.
Yeah.
How that continues to
And
unravel.
Joy is your cousin?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, she was one of the first till when I entered in 1989. She was at Montessori. She was there
okay.
as a 5-year-old.
Yes.
And I also had you send a request from Miguel Louisi.
Yes,
I
Miguel Louisi. Yes.
Yeah, that was another little one of mine. Let me give you a joke about him. Miguel was doing a painting for his grandma, Mrs. Archibald.
Yes.
And I gave him this sheet, and he painted, and the page it got torn. So he came to show me what he had done for his grandmother. But it was torn in two. So I told him that I'm going to give him another paper so he can get his torn. He told me, no, I'll bring it, she'll sew it.
She'll sew it together. Oh, that's good. I'll have to tell him that one. Definitely. Thanks very much for that, caller. Have a great day. All the best. And of course, we're going to have to end it here. We're over time already. So we hope that you can join us again tomorrow for another program of The Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. Have a great day.